nerds, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live chat. We are talking about self-care for writers, which is a super important topic, something we all have different levels of balance with in our lives. So to kick things off, the starting question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel you are doing with self-care right now? How well is this something you are prioritizing in your own life? If you are watching, we would love to hear from you as well. Let us know what your self-care and writing life balance has been. Start with Kyra.
Well, I'm bad at this. This is like a known fact about me for anyone who's talked to me for more than like 5 minutes, is that I'm like a little high strung and like I have a lot of like anxiety related to like being productive that I think comes from being in grad school. But it is very hard for me to like unwind. And so I guess, I don't know, like I'll say I'm like a 5. I'm not good at it, but I have been trying to be better at it. So we're giving some bonus points for effort there.
Yeah, fair enough. Bonus points is kind of a form of self-care, I think. Yeah, just giving yourself
definitely.
Rachel, how about you?
I'm a little bit in the same boat as Kyra. I definitely have been trying to do more self-care lately, and like actually kind of practiced that today, where I let myself sleep in as late as I needed to, and I'm like working on a project that has nothing to do with work or what, like a new hobby, and has been kind of nice to not have to constantly think of it as something to like heavily work on. I definitely could be doing better, but you know, bit by bit.
So is that a 5? Or is that your number?
Oh yes, maybe like a 6. Yeah.
Okay. So Emma, the question is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel you are doing with self-care right now? So, what you think?
I'd say like 6 or 7, somewhere kind of in there, a little above medium. Maybe sometimes too good at it, where I'm not productive.
That's me as well.
I'm too good at finding fun things to do instead of what I should be doing. But I do think sometimes, for me, what's sometimes hard is not so much like the act of actually doing self-care things, but doing them and like allowing myself to enjoy them. I think that's where I struggle sometimes, is like I'm really good at like distracting myself with like video games or, you know, doing something fun, but it's like letting go of the guilt of like I should be doing something productive is what can sometimes be difficult.
Yeah, I feel like I like swing pretty dramatically in either direction. Like I'm either great at this, like spend less time taking care of yourself and do things, versus like sleep, eat. So right now I feel like I should call it like a 7 to an 8 just to continue the progression, but I'm gonna go with like a solid. Yeah, I'm gonna say 6.5, but that's not that solid. We'll call it a 6.5. Yeah. Give it some thought over this chat because I don't really know. Megan?
I actually feel like I'm kind of in a good place right now as far as like writing, work, life, like trying to balance all those things. And I think a lot of it was just understanding that like I just have to go slow and that's fine. And also it really hit me hard. I saw it on Twitter and a TikTok or something, and I don't remember who said it, but just talking about like taking care of your basic needs isn't self-care. That's taking care of your basic needs. And that self-care is like actively doing things in the writing world, like that would be like refilling your inkwell or whatever, and letting myself see those extra tasks as doing just that. And it helps a little bit that if you'd asked me that question a year ago, I would have said like a 2. And then I got really proactive about trying to let myself do more things that I found creatively inspiring. And then I did like have inspiration to write and stuff. So yeah, I don't know if that made any sense, but I'm feeling pretty good, you know, moving slow, feeling okay.
At the end of the day, feeling pretty good is kind of what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Erin, how about you?
Megan raises an interesting point about the like just the basics should just be thought of as the basics and not like something radical you're doing for
Yeah,
yourself.
like it's not a little treat to sleep. That's like your body needs sleep.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah. So I was gonna be like, well, I'm doing so good because I'm finally exercising properly, and it's like, well, maybe that's the basics. So yeah, I am doing a lot better than I was, because I kind of accidentally fell into finding an exercise I really liked. Like I got really hooked on hot yoga because there's this weird like dopamine boost for me. So I'm going like a stupid amount. I think I've been doing like 5 or 6 days of yoga per week. So that has helped me in a lot of different ways. Just like I can sit at my writer desk and get up without being like, oh my God, my whole body is sore just because I sat down for 3 hours to write. So that's been really helpful. That feels like a form of self-care, even if it probably is just like something I'm doing, you know, for myself as a person, not just as a writer. I still really struggle with what some of you guys talked about, like the guilt of not doing the writing that I think I should be doing if I'm doing other things. I've been trying to let myself like relax at night after my child goes to bed, instead of feeling like I should be constantly back doing another project type of thing. Like, oh, I could work on one other thing for like a half an hour and then go have a nice bath and then go read a book, instead of working until bedtime pretty much. But yeah, I am like a lot of you. I think I tend to be like, well, I could go and read a book, but I should be writing, you know, have that guilt in all the time. So I'm trying to get better at that. Train my brain.
I should say I used sleep as the example, and then immediately was like, oh no, people used sleep in their responses. And I was not thinking about you guys saying sleep. I was thinking about a coworker I have who's like, oh, I only stayed up till 2 a.m. and that was self-care. Or will be like, oh, I haven't eaten all day and it's 3 p.m. So I'm going to go eat some food for self-care. Like,
no, that's so you don't die.
Yeah.
That's very basic.
So that's what I was thinking of, not a
I think
personal
it's like-
attack on anyone.
No, of course not. I think it's like that, that like the grind type of,
Yeah.
where, because I know I have friends, and probably even I've been guilty of this, where they've been like, oh man, I was working so hard all day, I didn't even have dinner, or I didn't have anything to eat until dinner time. And I'm like, it's weird to sound proud of yourself for that.
Thanks, that's disordered
mindset.
eating.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. You should be fueling your body if you want to do, you know, like a good workout or a good writing session or whatever. Like,
You should be fueling your body even if you don't want to do
oh
it.
yeah, I mean, like to required to live is eating, you know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, in addition to like self-care isn't just basic things that your body needs. Like self-care is also not just like things that then fuel your like work and your writing, you know, like I need to like eat so that I don't have a headache so I can keep working, or I need to sleep for a few hours so I can keep working, you know. Like that's not self-care if you're just doing it to like continue to fuel,
to be productive.
If the end result is doing it for capitalism, it's probably not self-care.
With kind of the recognition that like sometimes you got it, like there's some level of like being able to like care for yourself is privileged, like
for sure,
which is a problem with our society and not a problem with you, but I think that's an important note to make too, is that like, well, if people aren't able to do some of these things, like sometimes that's because of the system we live in.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Like I know for me, like the yoga thing is a huge privilege. It's massive. Those are not inexpensive classes, and just because I can now sit down for an hour without my hips hurting, like that's fantastic, but it is also a privilege to be able to go to yoga, you know. So yeah, I mean, there are different levels of self-care for sure, with, you know, like our most basic being feeding yourself properly, which shouldn't be thought of as self-care. But unfortunately, because we come from this culture of like, you know, oh, you know, boss babe and the grind and like all that, it becomes self-care when it really should just be like your most basic needs.
Yeah. I do think it's interesting what you brought up, Emma, of how like, yeah, you should be allowed to do fun things without the ulterior motive of making you more productive. Because I often use that as like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to feel guilty because in the long run, I'll be better at A, B, or C. So that was an attack. And I will be egging your house later.
I often feel like I have to talk myself into reading that way sometimes, which is ridiculous because like, why should I have to make myself do homework? Can't I just enjoy a book without telling myself, well, get down there and read it instead of writing because you have to read to be a good writer? And it's like, or you could just enjoy a book. Like, wow, what a guilty pleasure. Shouldn't be.
I am trying to relearn that one so hard. I, for the last like several years, have read like over 100 books a year, and a lot of it was kind of driven by this like, I want to know the craft, I want to know the market, and I just like hit a wall with that towards the end of last year. Set my Goodreads goal for this year for like 12 books, which when you've been reading 100 books a year, that's like a pretty substantial decrease. But also just trying to be like, no, I'm just going to read this book because I want to and not because I need to know the market or I need to know the craft. And I know Megan has talked about kind of relearning how to just like read a book slowly and reading like The Priory of the Orange Tree, I think is the one you're working on. Just like
I'm like 50% through it.
You have to
Having
read
a
it
great
slowly.
time. Yeah.
it's not as long, but I've kind of been doing the same thing with Hellbent, to just like, I'll just read 10 pages here and there when I feel like it. And it's going to take me, and it's like, if it takes me a month to finish this book, if it takes me 3 months, that's fine. Like, the book police aren't going to come get me because they're not real.
I think back when we were doing so many like videos on books and it just felt like, oh, I need to remember every little detail so that I can recount it on a video. And now we don't do that. Like, I don't have to remember every teeny tiny detail to discuss this book. I can just have fun. And if it's been a while, like, it doesn't matter. It's just fun.
Yeah, I think I also kind of got it into my head that like, that was just part of being part of the writing community, is like knowing what was out there and like supporting other authors. And I do support other authors, but like, it's not like the publishing community is doing a lot for me. So it's like the amount of like, it's a very disproportional like effort for what I was getting for, you know, the way I was reading previously, that I'm trying to kind of put that back into balance instead of just feeling like obligated to read everything I possibly can because I'm part of the writing community.
It's not one individual person's like responsibility to keep the like publishing industry afloat.
The entire publishing industry is on your shoulders, Kyra.
Only you can prevent forest fires.
I think BookTube too was like that a lot when we first started. Like, you know, talking about books on video always has a capitalist bend to it. But I just remember when we first started on YouTube, there would be BookTube channels that were doing like, I've bought 30 books and let me look at them all. And then I'm going to do a wrap up and I've read a book every day this month. And just like, oh my God, like how?
I know there's been some discussion recently about that sort of thing on Book Talk now, where it like has become like, how many books can you read in a year or in a month or whatever, you know, with people being like, here's all my like tricks for reading more books per year, which like, if that's what you want to do, then go for it. But like for it to just be that you have this goal of, you just have to read an impressive amount of books for like clout. It's like, are you still enjoying this?
Yeah, it's a good question.
I have a lot of thoughts about Misty Kate and Fun After 52's comments, talking about losing fathers and stuff, that I experienced that as well and did not write very much for just about 2 years. And I think definitely in that time, like, it doesn't really matter if you're doing fantastic at self-care or if you're doing fantastic at writing. Like, you just have to understand that, like, things are thrown off kilter and, like, it's going to take a long, long time for them to feel at all like you remember them feeling, but that it's okay. Like, it's okay to not touch a keyboard at all if that's what feels right for you. It's okay to go back eventually and be like, you know what, actually, I do want to word vomit a lot of things. And it's also okay to be like, no, I still need more time. Like, there's no wrong answer with that. For me, it was I didn't write anything new for a long, long time. And I read a lot, but not in a healthy way. So yeah, you just kind of find what you can do and you survive. And I'm very sorry that you two have also had to go through that. It sucks.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really good thing to bring up, because there's the obvious things that's like, oh, self-care is, reading for fun, and it's, obviously like fueling yourself properly and not feeling guilty. And then, there's the version that something happens, if it's in your family, if it's a hard time you personally are going through with, maybe, I know when, I was having a lot of problem with my anxiety disorder, it was like, oh, I should still be writing. And then it adds to that. And that's a whole nother subsection, I guess, of self-care, if you want to call it that, is learning to be gentle with yourself when you are going through something, particularly when it's something that you've never been through before, maybe. Or something that you can't just push through right anyways, like learning to not feel the guilt that might come with that for not writing,
Yeah, thinking about Megan's like unhealthy reading, and for me in like early 2020, like before the pandemic stuff, we had some family stuff going on, and like TikTok was like a big self-care thing for me, but it was really just a survival technique. It was just like, I'm
Like
gonna focus on this.
Yeah.
For sure.
And like I am so grateful to it for that. And even now thinking about the things that like the stuff that is just me like putting my brain on pause, that is technically a self-care activity, like just losing yourself in a video game, or or rewatching the same show over and over again. That isn't like that fulfilling self-care, but it's just like, I just need to do this because I can't do anything else.
Sometimes, in particular with when you have anxiety or you're going through depression or grief, just turning your brain off can be really helpful. Like that's when I used to scroll through Twitter if I was in like an OCD spiral and I could sense myself like, oh, it's starting, just scroll through Twitter and just read mindless, stupid crap, it is really just turning your brain off. And sometimes that's what you need to do. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, and it's so hard because like there's such a fine balance to like what's gonna work for all of this, and it's gonna be different for everyone. And I think it's so easy to kind of tilt yourself just out of balance in any direction. So like I know for a lot of people, like video games, for example, are like one way to kind of dissociate and kind of shut your brain off. And like too much of that obviously is gonna be a problem. For me, I always think though that like my mental health is like, if I'm playing video games like regularly, it's like actually a sign that my mental health is doing better, because it's so hard for me to like turn my brain off that, so it's like somewhere in the middle of the two extremes of never turning your brain off and turning your brain off all the time is like where you want to be. But it's so hard to like stay in between, that stay in that kind of green zone.
I had a similar realization today of like, I started like meal planning for next week and getting a little more ambitious, like wanting to try more complicated dinners and stuff. And like when I have the capacity to do that is when I'm doing okay. I haven't done it for like the past month, but when I actually, because like I like doing it, I like making nicer dinners to eat, but I can't even plan a grocery list if my brain is not there. So then it just becomes okay, let's figure out what's in the pantry. But when I'm actually like planning dinner, it's like, oh, this is good. I actually have a little extra to give to something I enjoy. Just nice.
Yeah. So we have some really good notes from Kaylin. We mentioned this last week, but Kaylin has been saving us lately. She's been scheduling all our videos and like arranging talking points and stuff. And I feel like this kind of leads into good talk about burnout. Like how can you guys tell when you're approaching burnout?
That's a good
Have
question.
we not all just been burnt out for like 3 years straight?
I'll let you know when I figure out once I'm out of burnout. Like all of this since 2020 has been me navigating burnout Like it's
To be honest, I think I've been burnt out since I was like 13 years old.
I think for me, the signs are kind of what Kelly just described. Like when I notice that I'm like falling behind on the stuff that like I usually have a pretty good regular routine of, like if I'm not like I usually like do all our laundry Friday, and if it's like Sunday and I still haven't done the laundry, I'm like, oh, what's happening? Like just like things like that. If I'm getting behind on the stuff that like usually like those basic care tasks once again, that I've like gotten into good habits with, that's when I like start to know I'm like feeling burnout or overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's different, for me at least, there's things that I don't know. It's hard. There's things that I burn out more easily on, like social media for me is like a part of being an author, but it's also something that I can just burn out really, really easily and really, really crash really hard on. And that happened for me, like, I don't know, last year. I can't remember when I quit everything, but that did eventually happen. And I found myself dreading like going onto Twitter or dreading trying to make a TikTok video. And then it was like, oh, I hate this. It's not fun anymore. So I think I was like, oh, I'm putting way too much. I think it's when I find myself thinking about it way too much and lying awake thinking about it. Like, oh, I need to be doing, like, there's pressure, right? I need to be doing this. I need to be doing that. And then stressing about it. And you're like, at a certain point, this is like a creative thing that we're doing. It's supposed to be sort of fun. There should be parts of it that are fun. And if there are no parts of it that are fun and you hate it, maybe stop, like, or take a break. And that's what I did with social media and certain platforms.
Yeah, I think it's similarly for me with writing. It's like anytime I start having just those little thoughts in the back of my mind that are like, what if he just quit? Then it's like, oh, I need a break. Like,
what if I quit? Like, take a mini quit.
Yeah, I think it's Amy Lauren who talked about quitting writing. Kyra, Amy Davis. I knew it was an Amy. Amy Davis has done some really, really fantastic posts about quitting writing when it's not working for you. Yeah, highly recommend.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we would learn to know when this type of burnout is coming eventually. That's my hope. And take a break before we feel like screaming and quitting everything all at once. But
yeah.
Sometimes
I think my hope is even like a step early, like not pushing myself until I have to catch myself with like finding a sustainable pattern would be lovely, of like not just like going until I'm too close to burnout that I have to change something, of like finding like a homeostasis of it all.
I think for me, like what I have learned in particular for deadlines for me is because I do this thing and I'm starting to learn my patterns. It's taken a long time, but I started to learn that often the ADHD brain makes it so that I will put it off and put it off and put it off. And then I have just a tremendous amount of work to do before the deadline. And that is when I burn out, and I burn out hard, and it feels, you get the anxiety kicking in and, oh my God, I'm never going to make it. I'm going to have to ask for an extension. And this time around, I feel like I finally kind of like clued, when you like clue and you're like, oh shit, I've been doing this. So like cluing into your own patterns is a huge thing. And this time I took certain steps to make sure that I am properly timing things out so that I don't do that, so that I don't push it all off until the very end, until I have like 5 days left to go. And I'm going, oh my God, I still have half a manuscript left to edit, which is when I have to work until I burn myself out because there's not a lot of choice.
Because like when we did that in high school, like writing an essay in one night was doable, but like the goalposts has gotten more intense, and like putting the same level of pressure on a much bigger project does not work the same way. You feel like you could pull it off because you've done it before.
Oh yes, yeah, and then you shoot yourself in the foot, and you learn that. So I finally, I think it's hard to tell because it's hard to judge yourself, but I'm like, I think I'm on track this time. I think I've plotted things out, like down to counting out the weeks and counting out the pages the edits I have to do. But it's taking a long time to learn, to learn a new system and to learn what my, shortcomings are and to kind of fix them so I don't burn myself out.
So you said you did like more strict scheduling. Was that like the big difference for you this time?
Yeah. Because a lot of the time, like another thing about ADHD is that, like, for those that don't know, we have a lot of trouble with, like, it's either now or it's later, and it's really hard to keep in mind, like, okay, I have 4.5 weeks. What will that feel like? I won't work on the weekends, probably. I have 5 days that I will actually get work done. How many? So I've like blocked off my chapters into, so these are 2 giant things I have to work on in chapter 28, right? So I'm like, how many of these realistically will I get done in a day? And then how many days do I have in a week that I will realistically get to work on this? And then how many days does that mean? Like, I literally had to sit down and do the math. How many can I realistically do in a day, and how many days do I have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pacemaker.
Probably.
It's a website that just does that for you. It's really nice.
Yeah. Does it math for me? Because that would be
Yeah,
fantastic.
it'll be like, I'm not going to work on the weekends, or I want to
Okay.
be like more intense at the beginning and scale down.
Yeah,
or
you
the
can be like,
opposite.
I want to front load it because I'm in the zone right now. Like,
Okay, so it's
wonderful.
called Pacemaker, you said?
yeah, like the heart
Okay.
thing.
I was like, I
the
may
website
need a
was.
pacemaker because of the anxiety, yes. Yeah, so that's a brilliant sounding website. I'll have to look that up. But yeah, that's something I found.
Pacemaker.press.
.press. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Maybe we should put it, after we're done, we could put it in the comments if somebody wants that as well, or in the description. Yeah. So that is something I found to keep myself from project burnout, is to calculate the schedule and how long it will realistically take me. Awesome. Pacemaker.press.
I definitely do what N. Griswold has said, which is, I don't think it's so much waiting till the last minute for me, but I underestimate how long it will actually take to complete a task. I'll think I can do it in 2 days and it ends up taking a week. That is my entire revisions experience this go around. I'm like, I think I could be done in a week, and then it takes
Megan's been done in a week for like
months. Months.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Not pacing something based on like what you could do if you were working at your optimal pace the entire time, because you won't be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Giving yourself wiggle room is a huge thing that's like very important. It's like, hopefully I'll have, an extra 5 or 6 days at the end, particularly if you're like, I know I'm going to want to go over this manuscript like 2 times at least, like read it over and see what I've missed, and then have time to fix that. So
yeah, it is a privilege of the unsuccessful author that, like, I don't have a deadline. Like, if something's taking too long, that no one's expecting it except for my friends. And so realizing that, and realizing that, like, with the way publishing is right now, it doesn't matter if I finish something next week or next month. People are going to take 6 months to get back to me anyway once I start querying. And so it's like, what's an extra month or 2 in the scheme of the 1.5 years it's going to take to hear back from one of the agents in my first round of queries? It's kind of like, it's been a little freeing, honestly. Yeah.
I'm glad Megan feels freed by this. I'm like doing the opposite thing, where I'm trying to think more like Megan does, but my brain, where it goes instead to like, I gotta push things out the door because I'm gonna not hear back for 6 months, and I don't want to make it 7 months because I'm taking longer.
I think a lot of my main issue when I was in the querying and getting responses stage was that I rushed everything, because I was like, because I was very much Kyra's mindset, where I was like, I got to get this done. I got to get it into the agent's hands. I don't want to wait any longer than I have to. And for me personally, I did end up A, burning myself out, and B, not giving myself enough time to dedicate, dedicate myself to the manuscript in the way that I needed to. So I ended up blowing through projects and not fixing them or not editing them as much as they needed to be edited.
Yeah, I just
For
feel
me.
that everything takes so long now that it's like Kyra and I
There's
still
no
have queries
rush.
out from the book we started querying well over a year ago, probably about a year and a half ago now, right?
We have multiple queries that are over a year old that are like from
and-
people who would theoretically respond.
And so it's like I could get this book done fairly quickly. Like I don't think that it's in horrific shape. I don't know, y'all might disagree when I send it to you, but I don't think it's in horrific shape. But it's just like, well, I'm having fun with it right now, and I'm enjoying the time spent with the book. And it's like, well, if I like it, I'd rather keep tinkering with it, because I know the second I start querying it, I'm going to begin to hate it. So
oh, sorry, who was? I heard someone
was
start
gonna
talking.
say something. But
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's hard too, because there is so much of this mentality in capitalism, but also like in publishing, that's like, it's a very like pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality, right? Where, you know, the only way you can get a foot in the door is to like keep putting yourself out there, and to keep putting yourself out there with like new books. You got to keep writing new books, and you know, so it's like, I think there's so little in publishing that you can control, that it's very, this is me speaking very directly about me. Maybe you
I
Mm-hmm.
agree with the sentiment. Totally.
but like for me, it's very hard to like slow down, because this is the only part of the process I can control is my own output, right?
For
And
sure.
you know, if it's, you know, you just got to keep trying until you get lucky. Well, let's like give yourself more chances to get lucky, and you do that by writing more books, and like that, and it has absolutely brought me to some unhealthy places that I am still trying to work myself out of.
I think our writing group a little last year or something went through that kind of motto, being like, try to just finding the joy in your writing again. And like, I think that's a huge part of self-care, is like trying to realize you've lost it to begin with, and like try to think of ways to enjoy it again. And that was one of the big things for us, was like learning to write for ourselves again, learning to write for each other, enjoying sending chapters back and forth to each other. And like, I know like Kyra, when you were putting in like a little chapter at a time, and Meg and I were like, yeah, time for a new chapter. It was really exciting. And we do this, I don't know if the people that have listened to us ramble about writing group know, but we do these like ridiculous slideshows for each other, where it's like unhinged PowerPoint night, and everyone really looks forward to that, because it's just so ridiculous and so fun. So yeah, I'm like, writer friends are another really big part of self-care, and just like basically like moral support. And yeah, rediscovering the joy in writing was one of the things that felt really like self-care to me.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to, for me at least, because writing is something that is simultaneously like work. Like I want to professionally do it in a like get published sort of way, but it's also like my hobby, and it's like the thing that brings me joy. And so like I think a lot of times just boiling it down to like, oh, I'm burnt out from writing, I need to take a break, is not necessarily helpful for me, because it's like, that's what I do for fun, right? Like,
right.
If I'm not writing, what do I even do? Which is like a different problem. And I'm also trying to have more hobbies outside of writing. But for me, it's been really helpful to start trying to distinguish between like, this is writing that I'm doing in like a work way. And this is writing that I'm just pursuing for me. And that's a very, very hard distinction to make. And I'm not perfect at it, but I think it definitely helps to try and put in a little more balance. Like, you know, am I still like doing this for me at least some of the time, or is it
I wanted
only
to ask
work, or,
Rachel about that, because like for you, working in publishing, being on Book Talk, how do you keep that balance of like still loving just reading and letting it be for you sometimes? Like it doesn't always have to be about keeping up on the industry or what you're going to post. Is that something that ever enters the equation?
Oh yeah, all the time. Like we're like, how do you keep them separate? Like I don't. And I, especially like in 2022, too like burned out, probably twice, like really bad burnout about twice. And that's something that I'm trying to do in 2023 of like, yeah, like kind of Kyra said, like the thing you do for fun is the thing that you also like have stress towards, or like the thing that I do for fun was, you know, YouTube and book talk and such, and to a degree that is almost like a side hustle, and so it's hard to separate the two of them. Yeah, when I noticed that like, oh, I'm dreading having to like film something, then I was like, okay, something's like, this isn't good. This is for fun. Like that's what I have to remind myself. So yeah, this year I'm trying to step back a little bit and like take some breaks. Don't stress out if like I don't have time to post something, and then also like pick up books again just because I'm like, oh, this looks cool, and not because I feel like I have to reach a certain reading goal, or I have to include something, or I have to be reading what everyone else is reading. It's a balance. I'm still learning how to do it, but
it's so hard to be honest with yourself and making that distinction of, am I doing this for fun or am I doing this for work? Because I'm very good at like trying to be like, oh, I'm doing this for fun, and oh, it just happens to be productive.
Yeah.
What a wonderful side bonus that it's also getting me closer towards an external goal.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a really hard distinction, because I'm like Kyra, I don't have another hobby. I don't have like, I'm going to go off and paint, you know, the oil paints I love, or I have nothing like that, because like I am not a patient person. I've tried before. I've like, I'll take up drawing, I'll take up painting, and then I instantly get crabby because I'm not amazing at it right away. And I just end up giving up, which is, that's not a great quality. I'll admit that freely. But yeah, I'm the same way, where it's really easy to tell myself like, oh, this book is just for me. I'm not going to show it to a publisher. I'm just going to really enjoy it. I'm going to send it to my writers group. It's going to be awesome. That way I can write whatever I want. But, you know, there's always that little voice in the back of my head that's like, well, why would I do that if I'm not going to, if the book isn't going to go anywhere? What would be the point of that? Why am I wasting my time with it? So yeah, it's easy to say, and then really hard to actually think that I'm just going to put it in a drawer and not do anything with it after that. So
yeah, I like, even the smallest thing of I call it the self-care was like, I went to a bookstore the other day and I just like looked around and like didn't film anything. And that to me, I was like, who am I? Like, you know, this like,
That's awesome though.
I know, because like before you're like, oh, that's an opportunity. You're out, you're around something. It's a cool backdrop. It's, you know, take a picture, take some film, do whatever. And I was just like, I'm just going to go in, I'm going to walk around, and I'm just like not going to think about like making this into something. And so that to me is self-care.
Yeah, it totally
I think
counts.
that is, yeah.
Yeah, I like even just going to meet up with a fellow writer at a coffee shop and then not documenting it at all, like not taking pictures, we're not streaming anything, like just talking, like, yeah, that to me feels a little bit, I like that better. I don't like, I have some friends that are very online and they'll be like, let's take a dozen pictures, and I'm like, okay. Can we not? Yeah.
I'm just realizing that, like, outside of the 2 live chats, it never even occurred to me to make content while I was with Megan and Emma. And like, that is so nice. Like,
Yeah.
it's how our relationship to the channel has changed. But
We like
just remember,
took
like,
2
filming
pictures
stuff at
of the 3 of us.
Kelly's
And that was
wedding.
it.
Well, and that's mostly to
Kelly's
like
wedding, we're like filming
Filming.
stuff, like
Yeah.
I think we planned to film more than we did, but we're like, well, we're
Mhm.
here, we got to create content. Never mind that we're just like trying to enjoy being together and like,
Yeah,
celebrating
exactly.
Kelly's wedding.
Yeah. I think that I would always expect you guys to take a picture to Snapchat us and taunt us that you were
Oh,
together,
yeah.
though.
We did a lot of that.
There has to be taunting, I mean.
Yeah.
But it was like 4 days in when we were like, oh, let's take a picture of the 3 of us.
I do feel like obviously everyone's mileage will vary, and I think you see that a lot in like mine and where's the angle there? Mine and Kyra's approaches to things in particular. But I've found a lot of power both in like professional life, in writing life, in social media life, just saying no more. Just, I feel this inclination to rush sometimes because, publishing moves so fast and so slow all at once. And like it's okay. And it is pretty cool to be like, no, like, I'm not going to play that game right now. I don't want to play that game right now. So no, or like, no, we don't want to film content when we're together every single time. Sometimes, yeah, but not every time. And the flip side of that is that sometimes it's like, well, am I saying no to be powerful right now, or am I procrastinating? But you always know in your heart what it is.
Well, and I think having friends who can help you keep it real too, like
for sure.
The fact that Megan and I are friends. Which way
it's a hard angle to hit.
It's so hard.
Megan and I are friends. It's like the opposite of the direction you are on my screen for me. Anyway, I think like provides some really good balance. I also have this other friend who like I talk to a lot about writing, and they are very good about, like just bringing up, because they know these are things I struggle with, like good, but also take care. Like they're just very good at approaching like this balance and keeping me real with myself. And because they are kind of monitoring me as well, and not in like an overbearing sort of way, just like talking about it, it's so much easier for me to be more honest with myself. And like they'll support me whether I'm going to like dig in and work a little harder, or if I'm going to like lean out and take a little break. But just having someone to kind of validate like that you're kind of in this green zone instead of at one of the extremes is really nice.
I had a really good comment from Tessa, who said, one of the things that I do when I need to turn my brain off is turn on a documentary. I don't have to follow a complex story, and the information is given to me without me having to think. And I love to do this with like audiobooks, nonfiction audiobooks, like about the world. So like last year I read that book on moss, life-changing. I am always thinking about moss. And this year I just started listening to a book about pests, like outdoor pests. And I'm only like 20% of the way in, and it's so good so far. And it's totally changing the way I view like the creatures outside of my house. It's great. I love it. Highly recommend.
That feels so
Side
random.
question. Megan, how many books do you have like on the go right now?
Right now, I am listening to the Pests book. I am also very casually listening to The Two Towers, which is a book I've already read before, and I am very familiar with the source material already. I'm very slowly reading Priory. And
those are three I could think of. Like you definitely have at least 3 books on the go right now.
Yeah, I'm reading a lot right now, actually. And so in between, I've read several books, but most of those I finish in 1 or 2 sittings. So like I read Astrid Parker Doesn't Care. I read, let me pull my Goodreads actually. What's the one I most recently finished? Oh, Our Wives Under the Sea.
Did you enjoy Astrid Parker?
It was so good. Oh my God. Oh, and I listened to The World Keeps Ending and the World Goes On. It was a book of poetry, and it hurt me so badly in such a good way. It was great.
I love the title.
Yeah. And I also read The Getaway by Lamar Giles. That was another one that really stood out to me. This last like reading spurt I've gone through, it was kind of like if the Disney Corporation built up the city that they already have even more and then like caused the end of the world. So like near sci-fi thriller. It was really, really good. It was really good. I enjoyed it a lot.
Oh man. We got a really nice comment from Jade R. I've been watching / listening to you all for years, and it's wonderful to see your evolutions, that you're all still in touch with us and each other. Thank you for watching for so long, Jada. We love you.
Yes.
Give me the warm and fuzzies.
How do the youths do the hearts now?
I can't do it. I'm like, I know Rachel could do it.
My hands are way too shaky.
What do you do? What do you do?
It's
So-
middle fingers up.
So you're like peace signs together, and then you bend at the top.
That feels terrible. No. No, but you.
My hands are just so shaky. Can you see? I can't keep my fingers.
I hate it.
Okay, so the youths that are younger than I'm not a youth anymore, but the youths that are even younger than me, you could just do this because it's
Yeah.
a heart.
That's kind of cute.
Oh.
I
So
still do does this make me a millennial? If
I don't know.
this?
That's what I do.
Yeah, probably.
So Taylor
It's
Swift
easier.
does that.
Yeah.
Well, if it's
She's
good
about
enough
as
Taylor Swift,
millennial as it
definitely.
gets.
Shush, no, she's so young.
Aaron, the good and bad news is that what makes you a millennial is when you were born,
Yeah.
not the hearts you make. So go
There's no
ahead.
getting out of it.
Fine.
Uh,
Oh man,
Maybe the
I
real
just-
hearts were our birth years all along.
the hearts were inside of us all along.
we're on our social security cards.
Youths. I would enjoy that.
Joe Catherine, I think it was, scrolling back, mentioned taking up terrible painting. A very different hobby for when writing is impossible. And I'm also still learning how to like have hobbies outside of writing, but it's nice. 10 out of 10 recommend. I had to like try several before I found one that kind of worked for me. So I like joined a choir for a while and I went to a dance class for a while and I just like couldn't, like, they didn't relax me. They weren't like as fulfilling and I was bad at them. I'm going to show off a little bit. And then I took up embroidery and it's like, this is the thing I made that I'm going to send to Megan if I ever remember to
Very
put it in
good.
the
It's
Oh,
so good.
Amazing.
But it was like just a very low key, like I could pick it up and set it down and like it's much easier than it looks, which was good for me because that was one hard thing about trying to find a new hobby after like spending so much time in writing. It's like I'm good at writing, like I've spent a lot of time getting good at, so it's hard to go do something I'm not good at.
To suck at something, right?
Right? It's like, why would I do this when I have, thank you, and Crystal and Joe Catherine. But yeah, it's like, so that just happened to be the thing that like worked for me. And so I think if you are trying to find other hobbies, like feel free to try a few if one's not working. And
I think that's my problem probably because I did art in high school, so automatically adult me was like, well, I must be okay at art if I was okay in high school. Ladies and gentlemen, that is not a true thing. That is just because you were okay at something in high school, you are not decent at it as an adult. Because yeah, I think I tried drawing for like one night and then was like, I hate everything. I want to burn this so no one ever sees the evidence of my terrible drawings. And then I also tried painting because I feel like that's like the go-to. And
It's like
again,
wet drawing.
it is damp drawing. And it was terrible. It was awful. I think I did a few of those like the M birds, and I was like, I hate this. And I still have a blank canvas in my closet that I will just never look at again. Is yoga a hobby? I guess that's the closest I've come.
Yeah.
It's an exercise.
I
but
play
guess
video games. I count it as a hobby.
Okay, so I guess I do have a other hobby. I'm also not good at that. I fall over a lot, but
And I could be totally wrong, but Aaron, for me, you and writing, balance feels less important. Like writing fills you completely in a way it doesn't always for the rest of us.
Yeah.
That is what your brain wants to do.
that's true.
And
Yeah.
that is okay. Like it's, you don't need to force yourself to be like into all of these other things if your soul is really happy writing.
Yeah,
For
sometimes
sure.
it feels like I'm not well-rounded enough though, because other people are like, I'm doing this hobby and this hobby, and I'm like, I have nothing else, you know. Like,
I also think it's like okay, and maybe sometimes even a good thing if your other hobby like isn't something creative. You know, it's like drawing and
Yeah.
painting not working out for you. Like it's totally fine that it's not another, like just because you're a creative person doesn't mean you like have to do other creative things. So like yoga totally counts. It's like something completely different, and maybe that's just like what your brain and body need. You know.
And you also have a child. Like a lot
Yes.
of hobby time is taken up with child rearing.
he's a hobby, right? I told
His hobbies become a lot of what you're like.
Yeah.
Oh my
I know
God,
way more
yeah.
about Paw Patrol than my hobbies would be.
Yeah.
I watch so many kids shows. Yeah, I was saying to the word nerds before we got on here, I'm like, you might have a cameo guest appearance if he decides to just bust his way in here. But so far, so good. His hobby is video games now. He's 5, and I hear about Mario
Yeah,
constantly. Oh my god. Oh yeah, Joe Catherine says some people count reading as a hobby. Strange, I know. I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
A good point, Joe Catherine.
Yeah, I think we as writers see that as like, oh, it's all one thing, but it's like not if you're
Yeah.
reading for fun.
Some people just read.
Some people
and enjoy
just
it.
read.
Yeah.
I
They
still
don't
find
keep
it weird.
track on social media. They don't like review things. They just read books. It's wacky.
I literally was having this conversation with a guy today as my kid was on the playground, because we were talking about we both like science fiction. And he's like, oh yeah, he's also an astronomer, which is really badass, and like science fiction. So I was like, oh, do you also write science fiction? He's like, no, I just read. And like, I think a part of my brain was like, does not compute. But like, yeah, people just read. That's an acceptable thing, Aaron. Like, don't always also write it. Yeah. Good point, Joe Catherine.
Well, and to that point, like the reading that I found most relaxing since I kind of hit my major slump last year has primarily been in genres that I don't really think I'd ever write. So like I've been enjoying nonfiction books, I've been enjoying comic books, and because it's so much easier for me to just like listen and experience the book or read physically. I do mostly audiobooks, but like that's so much easier for me in genres that like are not ones I'm planning to write.
Yeah.
My
That
flip side
reminds
is like
me-
accepting that I don't really like comic books. I'd read some because they're like an easy Goodreads check mark, but like for the most part, nah.
That reminded me, I'm also on the 3rd book in the There's Something Killing the Children graphic novel series.
Wow, yeah.
Wow. There's a lot going on in there, and I am enjoying it. It's dark and fun,
Such a freaky title.
right?
Very good.
And
It's very good.
it's descriptive and accurate. Something's out there killing those children.
Yeah, it's one of those like you don't need a description, just the titles. I guess a good question would be, is there one thing that you guys have been meaning to do that you think would be good self-care? And because when Kelly was talking about meal prep, that's something that I think would be great for self-care that I want to start doing and just like haven't got around to yet.
I like that we all started the chat with like, I'm not great at self-care, and then as soon as you're like, what'd you like to do? Like, can't think of a thing.
Don't know. Also read more. Apparently I have a lot of things that I need to do.
So I feel like a lot of my self-care is coming up with systems to make things easier on myself in the future. So like I don't do like meal prep like actually preparing food, but like not having to figure out what's for dinner because I did it all at once at the beginning of the week.
Right.
So nice. And those little things of like, am I having a laundry day where you just don't have to think about when things get done?
Right.
It's something I enjoy because I like finding little productivity hacks without actually like having to be more productive right now. But that has been a thing for me for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think
One
my
thing
biggest
that-
fear at the moment that like I want to do is like I want to sign up for classes and like I want to go and like go to more things, be it, like events or yeah, classes, events, like just like go and do something and kind of get me out of my area.
Go
Not only,
experience culture.
yeah, just like
People.
yeah, just like do more things and like I feel like be more well-rounded. It's like yeah, because I feel like even though I'm like in a better place like mentally and like in my life, I kind of like I'm still in a little bit of a bubble, and I'm like I think I want to like branch out a little bit more. And I finally feel like I'm like secure enough to do that. So I've been like looking into some stuff. So we'll see what I end up doing in the next couple of months.
Awesome. Just out of curiosity, do you have any ideas that you're like, oh, I really want to do this class? Or...
I really want to take a dance class, and I really want to take a
Ooh.
sword class.
Yes,
Ooh.
that would be
Those
so
are my top two
cool.
right now.
Hmm. Classes are a really good just to be more well-rounded. I've been eyeballing like a martial arts class because I always wanted to take one as a kid and was never allowed because my parents are weird and thought that it would have, I guess, different religions in them. I guess some of them do, but I wasn't allowed, and I've always wanted to do like judo or karate or something. So yeah, that, and then like I've always loved the idea of learning a new language. So taking like, I don't know, like I tried to learn German when I was young because I thought it sounded really cool, like how you always sound angry even if you're talking about the weather. So I kind of want to learn German. So yeah, the idea of classes.
Des and I started doing like a Saturday afternoon. We were supposed to be practicing ASL together. It's turned into a bit of a crochet club instead. But maybe one day.
Valid.
It's a little hard to do ASL.
Well, yeah.
while
Well, the first one I was just like too intimidated to jump in because I haven't studied it in a while. So like, let's just like crochet and like just see where we're at. And we've only done two, but they've both been crochet so far. Emma, you were gonna say something earlier.
Yeah, two things for me. Like one is that I would love to become a person who like doesn't wake up 30 minutes before they need to start work in the morning.
I don't want that for me.
I
I'm
don't.
not made for
I
that life.
have zero aspirations to be one of those 5 to 9 before my 9 to 5 girlies. Like, no, I'm not overworking myself. But like, I feel like it may be nice to like wake up a little bit earlier and like do a little workout or like read a little in the morning or something. And like when it's quiet and my kid isn't awake yet, that's the appeal. Is like the house is quiet. I would have it to myself.
I've thought about that before too, but I've never
But
done
I'm
it.
so bad about it. I sleep until the last possible moment. But the other thing I have been wanting to do for a long time, but like I lived in like a small town where there just weren't opportunities. And now I'm in a bigger city. Is I'd love to find like a community like band or orchestra or something, because like I did a lot of band in high school and college and loved it, and like just haven't done it because like once you're out of school, it's a lot harder to find opportunities for that. So eventually I'd like to find something like that to do where I could get back into making music.
It's almost time to plant some more crops. That's my goal for this week, is to determine what crops I should plant next.
I ordered a seed catalog this week. I felt pretty cool.
Ooh.
I'm like, and like everywhere on the it was like all of this is on our website. I'm like, nope, I want the
no,
catalog.
give it to me. Yeah. We're getting like a second round of strawberry harvest. Like I just never like dug up the plants because they didn't die during Florida got a bunch of really big freezes, and all the plants stayed alive. So I was like, well, let's see what happens. And I think we're gonna get like 20 to 30 more strawberries.
Strawberries love a freeze. Like
Yeah.
Florida's having such a good strawberry crop this year.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I love strawberries.
I wish I'd planted so many more. Like, but I also, in hobbies, want to build a cage to go over that because the squirrels keep getting them. And I already have to sacrifice some to bugs. But I'd like to mitigate the squirrels eating them.
My big self-care thing that I would like to do is have more local friends. I have plenty of friends, like these people included, but I don't have a lot of like local friends. And so even though like I have people to talk to, I talk to people every day of the week. I just like, if there's like something going on here that like I want to attend, I'm like, who do I go to? Like, who am I going to go to the Tulip Festival with? I don't want to go to the Tulip Festival alone, and none of you can come with me.
Go with my sister.
I could go with your sister. I did take Megan's sister, who I had met once in person prior to this event, to a concert. So I should hang out with her more.
Yes. She's cool.
Yeah.
She's been in one of these chats because she didn't know it was going to be live.
We're at 59 minutes, so if we're at a pause point. Feel pretty good. I feel like there's a lot of topics that like Kaylin gave us that we didn't even get to.
I feel like we could do
Yeah.
a part 2 on this. Maybe not
Easily.
next week, but I feel like we could. I mean, we could do it next week. I don't know if this is 2 weeks of back to back. Like, there's been kind of some heavy stuff, I feel like. But yeah,
I believe next
feel like
week
could
we
do
have
part 2.
another nerd in scheduled. So,
Yes.
Yeah, Kaylin has made us a whole schedule. I'm not messing with it. Like, I don't have to think about it. It's great. But I would totally talk about this again. Or like, I feel like maybe there's room for to take this in a more writing direction where we kept it very just like
Life.
general self-care. Whereas we could probably get there was a lot of topics, like subtopics that were more writing related that I'd like to get into. So
You could always talk about them a little bit at the beginning of next week.
and yeah, there are things that we'll kind of work into some of our
Or we
upcoming
could save it
topics.
for when we're trying to think of what the topic is.
Yeah.
Since that always happens to us.
Yeah. We have budgeted, Kaylin has organized everything for us because she's amazing. But we are doing like productivity chats every other week now. So we can all get some writing time in together more frequently, or other productivity time. Doesn't have to be writing.
But we will call it here for now. Thank you all so much for joining us. This was like a surprisingly in-depth talk. I don't know. It's one places I didn't expect to do, and I'm really, like, it was helpful. So hopefully it was useful for some of you watching as well. All of your comments were very much appreciated. And Griswold had said, like, it's nice to know other people feel guilty about it sometimes. So, as always, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week with a nerd in, and hopefully we will see you all then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.